How many here are actually familiar with IARPA? Oh, good. I thought I was going to have to ask how many could spell it. So let me start off by describing our mission. As you might expect, because we do rhyme with DARPA, we were modeled on the DARPA way of advancing science and technology for the Defense Department, but our focus is really the intelligence community and the unique perspectives on capabilities, especially those capabilities that are very long-term, very complex, and multidisciplinary to develop. And by that I mean that we are typically looking at problems that require investment, sustained investment over a period of time. Our programs are typically between 3 and 5 years in duration. So we really are bringing them from the very kernel of an idea to something that we hope can be transitioned to users and deployed to benefit the intelligence community. In addition, we look at problems that are multidisciplinary. And like DARPA, when we run our programs, we are committed to full and open competition. We typically post a topic as a broad area announcement, and we invite teams to bid to be part of that program. And the teams typically are led by a lead, but also consist of several other organizations that bring their own unique technologies, their unique perspectives, their unique experiences to addressing those problems. So these teams work together over a period of time to make the technical approach that they have proposed to us into a reality. In addition, one of the other things that we are known for is our focus on technical excellence and technical truth. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is that if we're going to deliver a new capability to the intelligence community, we demand that it works. And how do we determine that it works? At every stage in the development of that technology over the course of our programs, we have milestones and very rigorous metrics, and we measure performance against those milestones and metrics using ground truth. That ground truth data having been collected and validated before the programs actually begin. And one of the sources of pride that we take here at IARPA is that we typically make those data available to researchers after our programs have been completed. And we feel that what that does is not only allow the data to have contributed to the capabilities that we've developed under our own programs, but also to go on and have a lifetime of their own and help academics and other government agencies research S&T components to take advantage of those data and use them as well. I'm going to be focusing on IARPA's GEOINT programs, but I did want to let everybody know that we're not restricted to GEOINT. We have programs in computing. We have, I would say, probably are one of the lead supporters and funders of non-CMOS computing technologies. So we're very into high-performance computing, quantum computing, superconducting computing approaches. We also have a very strong history of success in imagery and in language technologies. One of our most successful language programs, which was based largely on artificial intelligence techniques, has created a capability to develop speech recognition in a remarkably short period of time, as in a matter of weeks, with very little training data, which is really a monumental achievement when you think about the number of languages that the intelligence community needs to be able to understand. In imagery, we've had a number of programs that have been, in fact, picked up by the geospatial community, and I'll talk about a couple of them today. We also have had a focus on biometrics and identity intelligence. We've worked in sensors for chem, bio, rad, and nuclear threats. We are interested as well in forecasting, both in human forecasting and machine-based forecasting. And by that I mean, are we able not only to forecast an upcoming event accurately, but also forecast the time frame in which that event will occur, which I think does distinguish us from a lot of the forecasting work that's supported elsewhere. Of course, being a government agency, we're very interested in cybersecurity, as well as social science and platforms and arrays. So let me talk about a couple of our programs in particular. Hoping that slide looks better from your perspective than it looks from mine. It looks very dark from here. We have a number of programs that are focused on GEOINT, and I will spend a couple of minutes on this slide talking about the ones that I won't go into greater detail later. But looking at the upper right of this slide is a program called Finder. Finder actually was started back in the era when we were all seeing a lot of photographs of Osama bin Laden in the news. Those photographs came without any metadata telling us where those photos had been taken. And of course, at that time, we were very interested in knowing where those photographs had been taken because we really wanted to know where he was. And the Finder program was initiated in order to help analysts to determine, in the absence of metadata, where was a photograph taken anywhere in the world. And the program leverages machine learning and image processing, as well as optical character recognition and natural language processing to take advantage of all the features that are in a photograph. The program works in a semi-automated way, so there is a human in the loop, but it is very accurate and now can identify in a very large fraction of the world where a photograph has been taken in a very short period of time. That program sort of had its roots actually in DARPA, was developed to the point at which it became fairly usable by IARPA, and my understanding now is that NGA is making additional improvements to that program at the NGA research function, which you heard Cindy Daniel talk about a short time ago. Going to the sort of lower right corners of the slide, we also have a strong interest in geolocation of signals. And the SLICE program stands for Signal Location in Complex Environments. That's looking at long standoff receivers and very cluttered environments where it's very difficult to distinguish one signal from another, and has also allowed us the ability to locate moving emitters as well as stationary emitters. The HFGEO program, whose program manager is actually standing at the back of the room, Tori Creekmore. So if you have questions about that, please see Tori. That program is focused on high-frequency radio signals. And the focus of this is really to understand the effect of magnetic fields and to develop novel antennas and novel advanced adaptive signals processing, basically to model the ionosphere, which does interfere with these signals. And so Tori's had quite a lot of success with that program. So let me move to the next slide and talk, whoops, wrong way. Talk about some of the programs that are underway currently in the geospatial arena. Our Core 3D program was designed to come up with a fully automatic way of developing 3D models based solely on remotely sensed data. And when I say fully automated, I mean, unlike Finder, no human in the loop at all. And the goal is to come up with these models that are very spatially accurate, dimensionally accurate, as well as are able to represent the appearance of buildings and man-made structures with texture based upon the materials out of which these structures are made. The input data include EO, PAN, MSI, SAR, as well as elevation models. And I'll give you an example of the progression of one of our teams. The program has just entered its phase 2. This is a progression of improvement of one of the performing teams' approaches over the course of about 6 months between April of 2018 and October of 2018. So on the left, you can see that this was a model that was produced with a point cloud digital surface model and is, while it definitely shows that there is elevation there, there's not a lot of detail in that model. just a couple of months later, they were able to come up with a single view stereo box and non-box mesh ply approach, which gives you a little bit more fidelity as to the shapes of the man-made structures, but not a lot of detail about texture. And by the October timeframe, they were able to come up with some true orthographic correction. By applying some 3D primitives, they had much sharper shapes for the buildings, and they were able to apply texture to make the models look far more realistic. So that's the effect of about 6 months of work in one of the IARPA programs. And as I said, that program is in the beginning of its phase 2. So hopefully we'll be able to come back and tell you a little bit more about it when the program ends. Another area that I think is of interest to a lot of people at this meeting is the area of video analytics. The DIVA program, Deep Intermodal Video Analytics, uses the security camera paradigm to improve the analytics with video collected data. And some of the challenges that they look at in the DIVA program include identification of moving objects, identification of moving objects as the moving object moves from one camera view to another, so maintaining custody, both in a continuous mode as well as with gaps in the coverage in cameras, being able to identify particular kinds of activities that are taking place. And we are hoping that by the end of this program, we'll have a comprehensive set of algorithms that can be applied not only to the surveillance camera problem, but also to some of the overhead collection type video problems that the geospatial community is very interested in. So in addition to our research programs that, as I mentioned, attack very complex problems and take multiple years of sustained effort to develop the capabilities, we also make use of prize challenges. And the utility that we have found in prize challenges is to attract people to the problem that we're trying to solve who might not be actually interested in working in a sustained long-term research project with the government. It also allows us to get a pulse on what is state of the art in fields that are very rapidly evolving. So by putting a prize challenge out in an area that we're interested in doing a research program on helps us at times to identify what our starting metrics should be in terms of identifying where state of the art is today and where that state of the art may move as a result of the research program that we're funding. So that's one of the real advantages that we get from running these prize challenges. Another advantage in fields that are very rapidly evolving is taking the pulse of whether the metrics we selected at the beginning of the program are actually still valid metrics, or has the field moved in such a way that we need to reset that metric level in order to make sure that we're delivering something at the end of our program that is in fact state of the art. So let me talk a little bit about a couple of our challenges that are relevant to this community. The ACT EV challenge is one that actually ended in 2018, and that was done in association with the DIVA video analytics program. And that challenge invited the world essentially to submit algorithms that would detect and localize 18 different kinds of activities. And so this gave us a perspective on the approaches that were used by research groups that were not being funded on the DIVA program, and compare and contrast to the work that was being done under the program. Again, our goal is always to make sure that at the end of a program, we're delivering technology that works and technology that is the best possible solution for our intelligence community partners. The MVS 3DM model challenge is one that was done in association with the Core 3D program. And that challenge is, the abbreviation stands for the Multi-View Stereo 3D Challenge. And that one challenged the solvers to use 3D mapping algorithms with satellite imagery and convert that satellite imagery into 3D point clouds. That was one that was done before the Core 3D program, because the Core 3D program that I spoke about a few minutes ago uses the point clouds in order to develop the 3D models. So that challenge gave us what state of the art was in point clouds at the time that the program was starting. The PINS challenge is one that I will talk about in a little bit more detail. If I'll just skip ahead a little bit. The PINS challenge is one that I would say is associated with Torrey Creekmore's HF GEO program. The goal here is HF communications for resiliency, but we know, as we've discovered in the HF GEO program, that the ionosphere really does interfere with these high-frequency radio signals. And because the ionosphere is always changing, that leads to a highly dynamic condition. And so coming up with a reliable source of using a reliable way to use HF radio really requires that we understand and be able to model the ionosphere quite accurately. And we can do that using digisondes, but it's very expensive to both emplace them and to have the hardware itself. So between the cost of buying the sensors and to pay for the labor to emplace sensors everywhere, it's very expensive. So Torrey has come up with an interesting challenge idea where the concept is basically to place transmitters in a many-to-one orientation. So one transmitter, many receivers, and then to use those receivers to create a 3D model of the ionosphere. So the challenge has gone out. It was announced, I think, on the 19th or the 20th of May, so it's open for solvers right now if anybody's interested. And the idea there is that the solvers will have no knowledge of the transmitter characteristics, but will be given a lot of data on the receivers and the data that the receivers are collecting. And the challenge is for the participants to come up with a good model of the ionosphere. So again, one of those things that I hope to be reporting back to you, or maybe Torrey will come back and report to you next year and tell you how well that one did. So I'm going to go back a couple, if I can figure out how to run this thing, and talk about another one of our prize challenges, which was run in 2018. The idea there was to take overhead images collected from UAVs and gliders, as well as some ground-based imagery, and determine if algorithms could be applied to the collected data to improve the quality of those images in such a way that it would allow for better recognition, better identification, and better classification of the content in those images. This was a challenge, as I say, that was run in 2018. The evaluation included whether algorithms were good at improving these images for manual classification and analysis and inspection. And a second analysis was done, or evaluation was done, on whether these algorithms would improve when the classification was being done by automated methods. And it turns out that they differed. And I guess that's not terribly surprising, but it is kind of an interesting observation given the fact that when we talk about machine learning and neural nets, we think, in fact, that we are simulating the way the brain works. But in fact, what this is suggesting is that human perception does, in fact, differ substantially from what the computer comes up with. So that challenge, I would say, led to some sort of mixed results. I don't think that anything came out as being the sort of single solution to the problem, but it did open up some interesting questions. And so we actually have just completed a follow-on challenge to that one, which again was looking at collections from UAVs, collections from gliders, and ground collection, and again looking at image enhancement tools for pre-processing the data, and they are all being evaluated against a common set of classification algorithms. That prize challenge has just closed. The results are in, and they will be announced and analyzed at a workshop at the CVPR meeting in the middle of June. So people who are attending that meeting, please feel free to participate in that workshop promises to be very interesting. So let me move on to sort of the more global look at what are our current open opportunities and ones that we'll look at coming up in the near future. And as far as the open opportunities, as I mentioned, Tori's PINS challenge on ionospheric modeling is open for participation now. We also have another interesting forecasting challenge that is probably not one that I would say requires any specialized backgrounds or specialized training. It is the Geopolitical Forecasting Challenge, which is largely a crowdsourcing approach. And the idea here is that humans are using their best forecasting methods along with whatever data they can come up with in order to predict events that we would classify as geopolitical events. So things like election outcomes, outbreaks of specific diseases, any sort of macroeconomic indicators. And again, the idea here is not only to be able to predict that an event will occur, but also predict the time frame in which that event will occur. And this challenge is being done on a rolling basis. They will be periodically submitting to the public, the participating challenge solvers, the topics over time. And that website is up and running now if anybody's interested in getting in to that challenge. We've also just published a BAA for a new research program. So this is one of our longer term efforts. That program is called TROJ-AI. We have a focus these days on the use of AI to solve a lot of our analytical problems. And in particular, image analysis is a big focus of AI these days. We also want to make sure that we're secure in our use of AI. And so the TROJ-AI program is challenging people to come up with means to detect different Trojan attacks against different kinds of AI systems. And these will range from systems that are addressing imagery to ones that address text, speech, any kind of modality that we apply artificial intelligence to in order to be able to detect those Trojan attacks. As far as upcoming opportunities are concerned, again, on the AI security side of things, we are interested in a program that we're calling SAILS, for Secure, Assured, Intelligent Learning Systems. And this is a program that's really addressed at privacy attacks on AIs. So those kinds of attacks whereby by looking at an algorithm, you can actually reverse engineer it to determine what the training data were that were used to refine and train that algorithm for the particular problem that it is solving. For those of us who deal with classified information, that's a big concern. If we're training these algorithms on classified data, are we able to back engineer and pull out the classified information? There are other kinds of problems of this nature include understanding or being able to reverse engineer to understand the statistical distribution of different kinds of information training data that were used to train the algorithm, whether there were synthetic data versus actual collected data that were used to train, and also membership queries. So this program will be coming up very soon. Originally on this slide, I had another upcoming program called the SMART program, which is another one of Tori Creekmore's. And SMART actually had its Proposers Day just last week. So Tori's been running into people here at the meeting who had attended that Proposers Day. The idea behind the SMART program is one that probably is very near and dear to the hearts of people in this room, and that is how can we move beyond merely spatial data and move toward quantitative use of multispectral and multitemporal data in our analyses. And Tori has chosen the challenge of being able to identify, detect, and characterize large construction projects, heavy construction projects, as an example of trying to use these multimodality data in an integrated way in order to characterize that kind of activity. So I always say that was because Tori was actually at NGA when NCE was being built, so he has a particular fondness for large construction projects. So let me just sort of wrap up by describing how best to engage with us at IARPA. As I mentioned, I've spent more time during this presentation talking about our research programs and our prize challenges, but we also quite regularly put out RFIs and requests for information. And these are, like our prize challenges, done topically. They're often harbingers of programs that we're interested in doing, and another means by which we understand what state of the art is, where the field is today, and are an opportunity really for the research community to shape and influence what kinds of programs we end up developing by explaining to us, what is state of the art, where is the field going in the future, and how can we construct a program to accelerate the rate at which we get to that future state. The other thing that we do that we will be putting out a new BAA for in the not too distant future are what we call seedlings. And by seedling, we mean a smaller effort, a more limited time frame. We call them seedlings because they often will grow into larger programs. And this is a way by which we invite people to volunteer topics that we may not have even thought of, but which you in the research community believe are important to moving the field forward. And by volunteering a new idea, oftentimes we'll use that to answer a question that without the answer to which we really wouldn't be able to responsibly set up a program. They may be a proof of concept that forms the basis for a new program on which we could build with a key component, an entire system that will solve one of the hard problems that we at IARPA choose to tackle. And then, as I've discussed at some length, we do prize challenges and our research programs. So with that, I would be happy to field any questions that may have accumulated in the 27 plus minutes I've been talking.
Is this live? Yeah. I think we have time for about 2 questions. The first is the Army, specifically One World Terrain, is pushing 3D environments. Do you team on such efforts at IARPA these days?
So one of the things that I didn't mention and should have is that every one of our programs has a government advisory panel. And we use that as one means to team with other government agencies that are doing work in a similar area. It is a means by which we can understand the difference in perspective as to how a capability needs to perform in order for the Army to pick it up and use it in one application versus the Navy to pick it up in a different application, or any of the IC agencies. So it's a way to understand that sort of nuanced deployment environment that we need to build toward in order to make sure that we are successfully delivering capability across the board.
Great. I know we have a lot of small businesses here over the next few days, and I'm curious to see what type of success rate you all are experiencing right now engaging small businesses, and are there any more innovative ways that you're working in the future to do so?
So one of the reasons that we have this teaming strategy is that we recognize that typically universities and small businesses would be challenged to lead these teams. But by having a teaming strategy, we are able to take advantage of the latest and greatest regardless of the source. And so when I mentioned Tori's Proposers Day, that is a great opportunity for small businesses to come to meet with the program manager, to learn more about what the program manager's vision is for the program, and perhaps even more importantly for a small business, meet the other people in the room who are interested in possibly bidding on that program. And those Proposers Days are among the most dynamic events that I have ever attended, and to see the interactions that take place is really important. And in fact, when we have small businesses or universities come and visit us at IARPA, one of the things I always say is go and attend a Proposers Day, even if it isn't on a topic that you want to bid on, and watch. See how people interact, take advantage of seeing, what organizations frequently work with IARPA, reach out to them, find out whether their capabilities could be complemented by what a small business has.
Great. Well, thank you. Appreciate your being here with us today.